Hi, I'm Lance Lambert. Thanks for tuning in to the Vintage Vehicle Show. We are in Bellflower, California at the Bellflower Cruise. This is an incredible collection of hundreds and hundreds of cars and thousands of people. Well, in fact, a bunch of little people all around me here. We are going to do what we do every week. We're going to see some great cars, meet some great people, listen to some great music. So I want you to kick back, relax, and enjoy the show. Chuck Para, I'm walking along, and I'm glad I was wearing sunglasses at the time because this paint job nearly burned my eyeballs out. Tell us about your 51 Chevrolet.
Well, it's a Sunset Pearl, a house of colors, and I chose this color because I wanted it to be kind of like maybe 50s, 60s style, and this is what came out of it. The top is a gold Murano Pearl, the bottom is a Sunset House of Colors Pearl, and it's pretty much explains the paint.
You've done the right thing, I think, in that you kept a 6-cylinder motor in here. Was that a very conscious decision, or is there a small block Chev down the line, or you like the 6?
Well, I didn't want to change the originality of the car. I wanted to keep it like 100%, and so I did stay with the 6-cylinder.
The show here in Bellflower, I've never been to Bellflower before, so certainly never to this show. There are hundreds and hundreds of cars here, and I was just speaking to the mayor, and he thinks there are over 10,000 people here right now. This is an amazing show. Is this your first time out here?
Actually, I was here like 4 years ago with the car, but I've been so busy I haven't had time to go anywhere, and I made it a point to make it to the Bellflower show because when I was younger I used to cruise Bellflower.
Mm-hmm. So when you cruised Bellflower when you were younger, was it in a car like this? Because as you mentioned, this is such a traditional looking, other than maybe the paint wasn't that good back then, but this color was around then, and you have the white rolls and pleats. Is this like what you cruised in before?
Actually, it's the same car. This car was given to a good friend of mine for his 16th birthday from his grandfather, and we used to cruise up and down Boulevard with this car. And that's why it was sentimental to buy it. I bought it 30 years later because my friend wanted to sell it, and I heard about it, and I told him, absolutely, I'll buy it. And when I bought it, it was green and white, and it needed a lot of work.
Over the lifetime of owning a car like this, it could have gone through various trends where, at one point it had multicolored scallops on it and just incredible metal flake paint and the various things that have been done over the decades as far as what's popular and customizing, and this has kind of come full circle. Is that a reflection of what's going on in the hobby, do you think?
Actually, what I would have preferred to done was put airbags on it, but it does have hydraulics. The hydraulics make it a little easier for me to work on because I didn't really know that much about airbags. But other than that, the car is pretty original, except for the suspension. But the car is 100% original.
The lucite knobs on the interior, are those something that you, are they from way back then, or are they new old?
Absolutely. Those came from woodshop class when I was in the 7th grade. So believe it or not, I've saved them for that many years. I knew I was going to have a car like this, and it was perfect timing.
So those you made in your wood shop in the 7th grade?
Yeah, 7th grade, and that was over 30 years ago.
That's incredible. The Astro wheels, that's a real traditional touch?
Yes, back in the 60s when everybody was cruising around, I wanted to put the Astros on to kind of give it the old 60s look. And that actually defines Bellflower Boulevard back in the day. The only wheels that were available were Astro Supremes, Rockets, and some Kraegers, but the Astro Supremes was Bellflower Boulevard. That's what it was.
So do you feel like you're the same guy you were back in the 60s cruising up and down?
Oh, absolutely, in my mind, but my body, of course not, but yeah, I feel that.
This is a beautiful car, and thank you very much for being on the Vintage Vehicle Show.
Anytime.
Okay.
It was a pleasure.
All right, thank you. Jim Cook, it's not often that you see a 1953 Willys. This is an amazing car. It's an amazing color. How did this all come about?
Well, I bought the car on eBay about 8 or 9 months ago, and I've been working on it ever since. So it was just one of those things. I was looking for one for 2 years, and I finally found one. They're really rare. They made about 3,500 of this model in '53.
This is an Aerolark, is that right?
Aerolark. Yeah.
You don't see many of these hot rodded, and you don't see many of them stock, so you must be getting a reaction from the public that's like, what is it?
I can't drive it down the street without somebody rolling down their window saying, what is it? And then I tell them it's a '53 Willys. So what?
Who made it?
Yeah, the people that are in their younger ages, 30 and 20, and they don't know what a Willys is, but I remember them.
So how is it that you're not driving a 57 Chev or something that is more commonly seen in the hot rod and custom world?
Because you go to a car show and there's 500 of them there, and I'm the only one here with a Willys, so it's kind of nice to have something different.
Do you think the future of hot rodding and customizing is changing with more of the type of cars like this that weren't sought out in the past but perhaps will be in the future?
I think so, because of the cost. You get into the Chevys, and 55, 57 Chevys, they're $40,000, $50,000 for a nice car. And these you can buy a lot less money, and it's a little harder to find parts for them though.
We're going to settle something right here for the entire world. Jim, you are going to settle this. This is up to you from now on until the end of eternity. What you say right now is going to to make the final decision. Now, I saw some footage with an interview of somebody from Willys that was shot in about 1950, and they called the car a Willys. But everybody I know for as long as I've been around has called it a Willys. So which is it?
It's a Willys.
Yeah.
I've known about them since I was a kid, and they were always Willys to me.
Mm-hmm. People think of Willys Jeeps, so people probably don't very often think of an actual sedan that you can drive around.
Well, the reason that is Willys quit producing cars in the Second World War so they could produce Jeeps for the war. And then after the war was over, this was their first venture back into the automobile business. So, and they did it from 52 to 55, and then Kaiser brought them out. And that was pretty much the end of the Aerolark.
When you were perusing eBay, was there one thing about this car that's the one for me, or just the fact that one was available?
No, I wanted a car that had all the original trim and all the emblems and the hood ornament, and that was basically the body was still stock. And from there, it evolved into, it had a V8 in it when I got it, but it didn't have power steering. It didn't have, there was a whole lot of things that I didn't like that were done to it, so I've redone all those. But now it handles good, it stops good, it's easy to drive, and it gets about 20 miles per gallon, so you can't go wrong.
Well, it's an economy car. It's a Willys.
Absolutely.
All right, Jim, thank you for being on the Vintage Vehicle Show. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Well, here's something you don't see every day. To begin with, a 1936 Chevrolet Phaeton. Then it has right-hand drive, something very unusual. Conrad and Josie Garcia, how did this come into your ownership, and what's up with the steering wheel?
Well, the steering wheel's on the right side because it's a Holden-body out of Australia. The car, I purchased it from a gentleman up in Northern California by the name of Dennis Gibbs, big car collector, came out of his collection.
When a car is made in Australia, there's a lot. It's a Chevrolet. They sent the molds to Holden, or how does that come about? How is a Chevrolet manufactured by Holden?
Well, Holden is basically like here in the United States, we have Fisher bodies. In Australia, it's Holden. So that's the company that made the...
So General Motors sent them the dies, and Holden makes it to their specifications. You end up with a 36 Chev.
Basically, yes. Holden is the bodybuilder. General Motors supplies them with the frames and the, engines and stuff, and they basically build their own bodies.
One of two, it says. Very unusual. I've never seen anything close to this before.
Yes, there's only 2 of them known to exist. There's a green one, and there's this one. They produced 500 cars, but there's only supposedly, from what I understand, 2 of them in existence.
Is this something you tripped over, or you were specifically looking for a 36 Chev Phaeton and you found one?
No, it's actually something I did stumble over.
Josie, I noticed there were a bevy of children that were scurrying about us just moments ago. Do you have anything to do with those?
Yeah, some of them are mine.
They must love this car.
Oh, they love to ride in the back. They love the attention they get.
Do they fight over who gets to sit where in the back of the car?
Well, the back is pretty roomy, so they all, they each sit on each side of it, and they wave to the people when they get props on how beautiful it is.
So future plans for the vehicle, just leave it as is, or are you going to drop this down, put a 350 Chev in it, and do, airbag it or anything?
Well, actually, my plans are I just bought a front clip with the side mount fenders. I'm going to put those on. My plans are to paint the car black, and yes, I am actually considering to airbag it.
So a lot of changes in the future.
Yes.
This is an amazing vehicle. Thank you.
Thank you.
I love 59 Chevrolets. I love red anything. S.L. Robinson, this is an amazing 1959 Chevrolet. You are the proud owner.
Yes, I am. For the last 6 years, I own a business here in Bellflower, JD Body Shop, and we built the car there, and we built similar cars to this in the past 5 years.
When you got this car, was it a rusting hulk sinking into the ground, or what did you start with before you ended up with this?
It was basically a rust bucket that it came a long way. It had an old metal flake paint on it, and it was about an inch thick, and we took it down to the bare metal and started from there, and that's where we at today.
The running gear on it?
It's a 350 high performance 4-bow main Chevy.
Then your interior is pretty striking.
Yes, I was making it comfortable for me. They're Mark 7, Lincoln Mark 7 seats, and they have all the function that the Mark 7 have, and I'm an old guy, and so I want comfort, yes.
From one old guy to another, this old guy loves sedans as opposed to, I love Impalas, I love hardtops, but I think sedans sort of have this bad boy look to them, this really neat style to them. How is it that you ended up with a sedan instead of the typical hardtop?
I feel the same way. Post car to me is more muscle. It's a little different than the hardtop, no post car, and I like that about the car. That's more stronger car.
Where do you think these cars are going to be in 20 years when these old people are either really old or no longer around? What do you think is going to happen to these?
Hopefully our kids and grandkids go on with the same trend and keep American old cars around.
Maybe they'll get affordable when we're gone.
Well, these are not that affordable nowadays. Yes.
Well, this is a beautiful example of a 1959 Chevrolet. SL, thank you very much for being on the Vintage Vehicle Show, and you should be very proud of this car.
Thank you very much, and glad to be here.
Thank you. I'm standing here with William Sawyer, who has a beautiful 1957 Ford retractable. How did this come into your ownership? How long have you had it?
This came into my ownership because in 1959 I bought a brand new 59 retractable, and when they first came out I always wanted one. This car was from Santa Barbara, right next to the ocean, and it was a complete rust bucket when I bought it. I completely restored it. I completely disassembled it and assembled it all by myself. And it's a complete body off restoration from the frame.
What everybody's wondering, of course, is about the retractable top. Is it true there are 16 motors, something like that run that top?
There are 7 motors that run the top up and down, and 10 relays, 5 relays to run the top up, 5 relays to run the top down. And there are 11 switches and 11 breakers and 615 feet of wire.
That is amazing. Is that part of the reason they stopped making retractables, because they were so complicated, or did the market just go away?
The reason they stopped making them is because the Ford Motor Company lost money on every one of them, because at the time these were sold, they were $400 more than the cloth top, and the mechanism and all the extra hardware was extremely expensive, and Ford never recouped from the number that they sold. They had to sell at least 50,000, and they only sold 22,000 of this model and 49,000 of the 3 years, 57, 8, and 9.
Is it a 352 in here, or 390?
I have a 312 engine in this, and in 1957 they came out with a 272, 292, 312, and a 312 4-barrel, and the supercharged, the F model.
But this isn't the F model.
This is a straight 312 with a 4-barrel carburetor.
Well, this is a magnificent retractable. You have done a magnificent job of putting it together. William, thank you very much for being on the Vintage Vehicle Show.
Thank you.
have had a great time here in Bellflower, California, the Bellflower Cruise. Great town, great people, great cars. Lots of fun. Hope you enjoyed it, and we will see you again next time. See you then. Bye-bye.